The first thing Nora Hale noticed was that Dominic Moretti's SUV was sitting wrong. The black armored vehicle waited beneath the Grand Belmore's lights exactly where she had left it less than 2 minutes earlier, but the rear sat lower now. Not much. 2 inches, maybe. Enough for a woman raised in her father's repair shop to feel the warning before she understood it. Dominic came through the revolving doors surrounded by 6 men in dark suits and held out his hand. Keys. Nora kept the fob. The guard beside him frowned. He asked for his keys. Nora looked beneath the rear bumper. Fresh exposed metal cut through the black undercoating. A square dark block sat inside the wheel well, where no factory part belonged. Nobody gets in that car. Dominic's eyes hardened. Do you know who you're talking to? Yes, that's why I'm asking you to give me 10 seconds. One guard stepped toward her. Don't touch the doors, Nora said. Don't use the remote. Just move back. Dominic followed her stare. Why? The rear suspension wasn't compressed when I brought it up. Someone has been underneath it. He studied her for 1 sharp second, then gave a small nod. His men pushed everyone away from the drive. Nora backed up with them, still clutching the keys. She counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At 10, the SUV exploded. The blast cracked across the Belmore's stone entrance like a cannon. 2 lower windows burst inward. The rear of the armored vehicle jumped off the pavement, twisted sideways, and crashed down in black smoke and fire. Guests screamed. The hotel alarm began shrieking. Nora felt the heat against her face and stared at the place Dominic would have been standing if she had handed him the keys. Dominic did not look at the burning SUV first. He looked at her. Nora Hale was 29, the Belmore's head valet, and until 10 seconds ago almost nobody in the lobby had cared enough to remember her name. Dominic Moretti was 42, and powerful enough that the same people had gone silent when he entered. He controlled shipping companies, construction firms, private security, and an underworld network that made men twice Nora's size lower their voices. Yet his $1-million security system had missed what a valet had seen in one glance. He crossed to her. How did you know? My father owned a repair shop. I know how a vehicle sits when its weight changes. That mark under the bumper was fresh. Dominic took the key fob from her hand with slow care, then turned to the scarred man nearest him. Marco. Boss. Lock the garage. Nobody leaves. Nobody erases a camera. Nobody touches a log. Dominic glanced back at Nora, his expression colder than the fire behind him. And nobody touches her. The hotel manager started to protest. Dominic silenced him with one look. Someone put a bomb on my vehicle inside a locked garage, he said. I want to know how. The Belmore's underground garage had been designed to make rich people feel safe. 2 armed hotel guards monitored the entrance. License plates were scanned. Every valet carried a badge linked to a digital movement log. The section reserved for high-profile guests had another gate, another camera, and a concrete wall separating it from public parking. 40 minutes after the explosion, all of that security looked like decoration. Nora sat in a private conference room on the mezzanine while Dominic's men turned the hotel inside out. Her uniform jacket smelled faintly of smoke. Her hands had finally stopped shaking, but every few minutes she remembered the violent lift of the SUV and felt the blast all over again. Hotel General Manager Charles Whitmore paced near the door. He was a soft-handed man in an immaculate tuxedo who had spent the last 20 minutes talking more about insurance than the attempted murder that had happened outside his lobby. This is catastrophic, Whitmore muttered. The press is already outside. We need one unified statement. Nora looked at him. Someone tried to kill a guest. Yes, thank you, Nora. We are all aware. You keep calling it an incident. Whitmore stopped. Because that is what professionals call things before the lawyers arrive. The door opened. Marco entered carrying a tablet. Dominic followed him. The room changed instantly. Whitmore straightened. Nora did not. She was too tired. Marco placed the tablet on the table. Garage access log is clean until 7:48. Then, Moretti vehicle slot C12 opens for 93 seconds. Dominic pulled out a chair but did not sit. Whose badge? Marco looked at Nora. Nora Hale. Whitmore's face tightened with ugly relief. I knew it. Nora stared at the screen. Her employee number sat beside the access timestamp. That wasn't me. Whitmore laughed once. Your badge opened the secured gate. At 7:48, I was in the ballroom entrance, helping with a wheelchair guest. Convenient. Nora looked at Dominic. There were cameras. Marco nodded. There are. He swiped the tablet. A grainy lobby angle appeared. Nora could be seen kneeling beside an elderly woman while another valet helped move a chair. The timestamp read 7:47:51. Nora stayed in frame until 7:50. Whitmore went silent. Dominic's eyes moved from the footage to Nora. Badge clone. Or somebody used a copied credential, Marco said. We found a camera gap inside the secure garage, 41 seconds missing. That camera doesn't go down, Nora said. Whitmore snapped. Please stop speaking as though you run this hotel. Nora turned to him. I work that garage 5 nights a week. Camera 14 fails when it gets condensation in January. Camera 9 glitches when the delivery elevator motor starts. Camera 12 does not go down. Dominic looked interested now. Whitmore looked offended. Marco tapped again. We recovered one partial image before the gap. A man in Belmore Valet gray appeared at the edge of the frame. Baseball cap low, face turned away. He carried a rectangular metal key tag on one finger. Whitmore leaned closer. That uniform could belong to anyone. Nora's eyes narrowed. Freeze it, Marco did. Zoom his right hand. The image broke into pixels, but the tag became clearer. A small crest was stamped in one corner. Nora pointed. That's old. Marco frowned. What? The key tag. She leaned forward. Belmore changed logos 6 months ago. The old tags had the crown inside a circle. New ones have the B monogram. That tag should have been destroyed when we changed systems. Whitmore's mouth opened. Nora looked at him. They were stored in the basement supply cage for 1 week before disposal. Who had access? Dominic asked. Management, maintenance, valet supervisors. And anyone who knew where the cage was, Marco said. Nora nodded slowly. Dominic's gaze stayed on the old metal tag. So the man who entered my garage dressed like hotel staff, cloned her badge and used a piece of old equipment to make the disguise look real. Not real, Nora said. Real enough for people who don't work here. Dominic looked at her. She held his gaze. A real valet would never use that tag now. Something close to approval passed through his eyes. Whitmore reached for the tablet. I need that image for our internal investigation. Marco picked it up before his fingers touched it. No, Dominic said. Whitmore stiffened. Mr. Moretti, with respect, this is hotel property. Dominic's voice stayed quiet. Someone tried to put me inside a burning vehicle on your property. Your concept of ownership is temporarily irrelevant. The manager swallowed. Nora almost smiled. She stopped herself. Dominic noticed anyway. What? Nothing. You disagree? No. I just don't think anyone has ever told Mr. Whitmore his concept of ownership was irrelevant. Marco coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. Whitmore went red. Dominic's mouth moved by a fraction. Then tonight has been educational for everyone. The humor vanished when Marco's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then looked at Dominic. Bomb team found the trigger system. Primary remote detonator with an ignition cycle backup. Dominic's face turned cold again. Meaning? Whitmore asked. The backup was designed to arm only after the SUV was shut off at the front drive, Marco said. Nora could bring the vehicle up safely. The next time someone started the engine and shifted out of park, the secondary circuit would close. If the remote failed, the car would still blow with Mr. Moretti inside it. The room went quiet. Nora felt the blood drain from her face. Dominic's attention snapped to her. Whoever built the device had planned around the Valet routine. They wanted Nora to deliver the bomb without knowing it, and Dominic to trigger the backup himself. Dominic ordered the hotel sealed for another hour, but before Nora could leave, Charles Whitmore blocked the conference room door. Turn in your badge. Nora stared at him. You have footage proving I wasn't in the garage. Your credential was used. You're suspended pending investigation. You're feeding the press a scapegoat because your security failed. Whitmore's jaw tightened. I am protecting this hotel. Nora unclipped her badge and placed it in his palm just as Dominic returned. You fired the woman who prevented an assassination in front of your hotel? He asked. Suspended, Whitmore corrected. For failing to let me explode? Nora stepped between them. Don't fix this for me because you're angry. Dominic looked at her. What do you want? The question surprised her. Not what do you need, not how much money. My name back, Nora said, and I want to know who used it. Dominic nodded once. Good answer. Downstairs, Dominic's transport chief, Elias Rourke, waited beside a replacement armored sedan. Elias was 50, gray at the temples and calm in the practiced way of a man who had spent 12 years driving Dominic through funerals, ambushes, and negotiations. We need to move, Elias said. Press has the front sealed. Nora circled the sedan. Correct ride height. No fresh tool marks. Then she noticed the temporary key tag. Why is this marked C4? Marco frowned. Meaning? Belmore staging row. This car came straight from a Moretti warehouse. No hotel valet should have tagged it. Elias's jaw tightened. It's a piece of paper. Nora flipped it over. A hotel number had been crossed out beneath the writing. Marco checked the vehicle. Taped behind the rear license plate frame was a small tracking transmitter. Dominic looked at Elias. That was not there when I left the depot, Elias said evenly. Nora crouched near the bumper. Maybe not. This isn't the same attack anyway. Dominic turned to her. The SUV was supposed to kill you before you left. This tracker is for whoever wants to know where you go after surviving. Nora straightened. Someone knew you would switch vehicles, and they knew which replacement to watch. Dominic's face went cold. Who knew this car? Marco, me and Stefan at the depot, Elias answered. Marco began collecting phones. Nora felt the danger move closer. Whoever had planted the first bomb knew the Moretti departure time. Whoever placed this tracker knew the replacement plan. The attack was no longer sitting outside Dominic's security system. It was breathing inside it. Dominic looked at Nora. You are not going home alone. I saved your life. That doesn't make my life yours to control. His expression hardened, then settled. Fair. Someone cloned your badge and may think you saw more than you did. I will put 2 men across the street. They will not bother you. That is still security. Yes. You're impossible. So I've been told. The next morning, Nora woke to headlines implying she had been questioned in connection with the bombing. One article quoted an unnamed hotel source. Another mentioned her suspension. None said she had stopped Dominic from entering the SUV. A knock sounded at her apartment door. Dominic stood outside holding coffee. Do mafia bosses usually make house calls? She asked. Only when the coffee downstairs is bad enough to qualify as an attack. He entered, saw the headlines on her laptop, and went still. That wasn't supposed to happen. You can't threaten the internet. No, but I can identify who spoke. Nora leaned against the counter. That's not why you're here. Dominic placed a report on the table. Bomb team traced one component to a shell company connected to the Valenti family. So your rivals did it. Maybe. The connection is too clean. More importantly, the bomber knew I left the gala 17 minutes early. Nora thought back. Dominic's meeting had ended unexpectedly. His SUV was requested only after he was already moving downstairs. Who knew? Marco. Elias. 2 close protection men. My assistant. Me. The fake valet also knew which SUV was yours, Nora said. Belmore's secure slots don't display guest names. Unless he watched a rival, someone gave him the slot. Silence settled between them. Dominic did not like needing information from her. Nora could see that. What mattered was that he did not pretend otherwise. We're going back to the Belmore, he said. You're asking for my help? Yes. That looked painful. It was. Nora almost smiled. Give me 10 minutes. Dominic glanced at his watch. She pointed at him. Do not say anything about 10 seconds. This time he actually smiled. The Belmore looked different in daylight. Less glamorous. More guilty. Nora entered through the employee garage beside Dominic and Marco. Every head turned. Some of her former co-workers looked relieved to see her. Others looked away, afraid association might cost them something. Whitmore met them near the security office. You cannot bring her into an active internal investigation. Dominic kept walking. Watch me. Nora stopped at the valet storage cage instead of following them inside. 3 shelves had been emptied after the logo change. Dust patterns showed where old boxes had sat. She crouched. "What?" Marco asked. "The old tags were here." "We know." "No. Look." She pointed to a clean rectangle on the bottom shelf. One box was moved recently. Whitmore folded his arms. "That proves nothing." Nora reached behind the shelving and pulled out a torn strip of gray adhesive tape. A handwritten inventory code remained on it. EV14, she said. Whitmore's expression changed. Dominic saw it. "What is EV14? Employee vendor storage." "Whose?" Whitmore hesitated. Nora answered. "Temporary event contractors." The gala had used 62 outside workers, florists, lighting crews, caterers, musicians, and rented security. Someone had moved the obsolete valet tags into a cage, accessible to temporary vendors, 3 days before the attack. Marco pulled the access history. The transfer authorization carried Whitmore's digital approval. "I did not authorize that," he said quickly. Nora looked at him. "So someone copied more than my badge." Dominic's eyes turned colder. "Someone is building a trail through expendable people." Whitmore bristled. "I am not expendable." Nora said. "To whoever did this, you are." That shut him up. Security footage showed a maintenance worker pushing the box into EV14. His face was hidden by a cap. His badge belonged to a hotel engineer who had been homesick that day. Another cloned credential. The pattern was becoming clear. Somebody was not simply planting bombs. Somebody was creating false guilty parties in advance. Nora felt suddenly cold. "They did it to me before the explosion," she said. Dominic turned. "They wanted my badge in the log before anyone found the bomb. That means whoever planned this expected an investigation. They didn't just want you dead. They wanted the answer ready afterward." Marco's face hardened. "A clean narrative." "Exactly." Dominic looked at Nora for a long moment. "You think like someone who has been underestimated a lot." She gave him a flat look. "I park cars for people who hand me keys without making eye contact." His jaw tightened. Not at her, at the image. By late afternoon, Marco had traced the temporary vendor list to a subcontractor that did not exist. The listed address was an empty warehouse owned by a Valenti shell company. That should have simplified the investigation. Instead, it made Dominic more suspicious. "Too obvious," he said in the Belmore's closed executive lounge. Nora sat across from him with valet manifests spread over the table. "You think the Valenti connection was planted too?" "I think my enemies enjoy money. They don't usually leave invoices with their name on them." Marco entered carrying a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a broken hotel radio earpiece. "Found near C12. Nora recognized the model. "That's not ours." "Private security issue," Marco said. "Moretti standard." Dominic's eyes went still. "Serial?" "Scraped, but whoever did it missed the internal pairing chip." Marco set a second report beside the bag. "I pulled the repeater logs. This unit authenticated through our transport channel at 747. Not hotel security. Not an outside frequency. Ours." Nora looked between them. The clue was no longer something only she could read. Marco had just proved that the fake valet had been listening inside Dominic's own security network. The threat had moved fully inside Dominic's world. That evening, Dominic changed his departure plan again. Only 3 people were told that he would leave through the east service ramp at 10:20 in a silver-armored sedan. Marco, Elias, and Daniel Cho. Nora was in the garage at 10:06 when a junior valet wheeled a keycart toward her. "Replacement car is ready." She looked at the tags. Silver sedan, east ramp, row B2. Wrong. Nora's pulse jumped. "Who moved this?" The valet frowned. "Dispatch text. Show me." The message came from the Belmore automated valet system, instructing staff to move the silver sedan from secure holding to east staging. But Nora knew the system. "Automated dispatch doesn't use the word east," she said. "What?" "It uses E-ramp." She grabbed her radio. "Marco, stop Dominic. Do not bring him downstairs." A second later, lights flashed at the far end of the garage. A black utility van rolled through a service gate that should have been locked. Its side door opened. Two masked men stepped out. Nora hit the emergency barrier control. Steel arms slammed down across the east ramp. One attacker raised a weapon toward the silver sedan, realized Dominic was not inside, and shouted something to the driver. Hotel security scattered. Moretti men appeared from the stairwell almost immediately. The masked men fired once into the ceiling, then retreated to the van. Tires screamed. The vehicle reversed, smashed through a lightweight delivery gate, and vanished into lower traffic before Marco's team could close the western exit. No one had been hit, but the message was clear. They had known the exact replacement vehicle and exact exit. Dominic came down 3 minutes later with murder in his eyes. He found Nora beside the barrier control. "You stayed in the garage after seeing armed men?" "I dropped the gate." "You could have been shot. If I hadn't dropped it, they would have had a straight line to the sedan." "You were not in the sedan." Nora stared at him. "Neither were you." For a second, neither moved. Dominic looked furious enough to break something, but underneath the fury was something Nora had not expected from him. Fear, not for himself, for her. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "You do not get to make yourself expendable because my enemies made a mistake." Nora's chest tightened. "And you do not get to decide my value because you suddenly noticed it." His face changed. She regretted the words immediately. Dominic did not get angry. He said, very quietly, "Fair." That single word affected her more than shouting would have. Marco approached. "Boss." The false dispatch was entered from an authenticated Moretti transport terminal. Dominic's attention snapped back to him. "Where?" "Fleet office." Elias Rourke ran the fleet office. Nora looked toward the ramp where the attackers had vanished. Dominic did not say Elias's name. Not yet. He had trusted the man for 12 years. That night, inside a private Moretti office overlooking the river, Dominic built the trap. 3 different departure plans would be released the following evening. Marco would receive one, Daniel Cho another, Elias a third. Each plan used a different vehicle, route, and time. Nora studied the chart. "Too clean." Marco looked offended. "It's a standard leak test, which means anyone experienced in security will recognize it." Dominic leaned back. "What would you do?" Nora pointed to the vehicle assignments. "Make all 3 plans believable. Don't give them different destinations. Give them different staging details only a transport person would care about." Marco's expression shifted. Nora continued. "Same destination, same general departure window. But one car gets a red valet sleeve. One gets blue. One gets no sleeve. One exits lower west. One freight ramp, one hotel front." Dominic watched her. "And the attackers will reveal which detail leaked." "Yes." Marco looked at Dominic. "She is annoyingly good at this." Nora smiled. "I get that a lot." Dominic's eyes stayed on her. "I am beginning to understand why." The next 24 hours were deliberately boring. Dominic attended 2 meetings. Nora remained under security, but refused to hide in a safe house. Instead, she returned to the Belmore's valet floor as an unofficial observer. Whitmore hated it. The valets loved it. At 6:30, an assistant manager quietly told Nora that hotel ownership planned to issue a statement blaming credential negligence without naming her directly. Nora felt something inside her harden. At 7, Dominic learned about it. At 7:05, Belmore ownership received a call from one of its largest lenders. At 7:10, Whitmore came downstairs sweating. Nora saw Dominic standing near the marble columns and walked straight to him. "What did you do?" "Nothing dramatic." "Dominic, one of my companies happens to hold a meaningful portion of the hotel's refinancing debt. I told you I wanted my name back, not revenge." "Correct. So I told them they may publish any statement they like as long as it includes the verified security footage showing you were nowhere near the compromised garage when your badge was used." Nora paused. "That is leverage," he said. She hated how much she liked him in that moment. At 8:45, the trap went live. Marco's version said Dominic's vehicle would leave through the hotel front wearing a red valet sleeve. Daniel's said lower west with no sleeve. Elias's said freight ramp, blue sleeve. At 9:12, Nora stood behind the valet control desk when an outside courier appeared near the freight elevator. He did not look toward Dominic. He looked at the blue key sleeve hanging from hook 17. Nora's skin went cold. She touched her earpiece. "Blue is burned." Marco answered instantly. "Copy." The courier walked away without taking anything. 30 seconds later, a camera caught him sending a message. Elias Rourke had received the blue sleeve plan. Dominic watched the footage in silence. For 12 years, Elias had driven him through ambushes, funerals, weddings, and wars. He knew where Dominic slept when he did not go home. He knew which roads he hated. He knew how close to the curb to stop so Dominic's mother would not have to step over snow. Nora saw the betrayal hit differently from the bomb. The bomb had made Dominic angry. Elias made him hurt. "We still need proof," Dominic said. Marco looked at him. "Boss?" "I said proof." Nora understood. Dominic did not need proof for the law. He needed proof for himself. They let Elias believe the plan was still active. At 9:30, he entered the transport office alone. At 9:37, he removed a burner phone from inside the false bottom of a route binder. At 9:39, he called a number tied to a Valenti shell company. Marco recorded every word. "The blue car isn't moving yet," Elias said. "Moretti changed the timing after the garage scare. Wait for my signal." A voice answered too faintly to understand. Elias's reply was clear. "No, the valet is still alive. I'll handle her after tonight." Dominic's hand closed into a fist. Nora felt the blood leave her face. Elias continued. "She saw the first device and the tracker. She's the reason both jobs failed." Dominic stood. Marco caught his arm. "Let him finish." For 2 seconds, nobody breathed. Then Elias said the sentence that destroyed 12 years of trust. "You've paid me for routes long enough to know I don't miss a third time." Dominic walked out of the surveillance room. Nora followed. By the time they reached the transport office, Elias was already gone. The false bottom binder lay open. The burner phone was missing. So was a compact black ledger containing handwritten route codes and payment dates Marco had not known existed. A garage alarm began chirping. "West exit," one guard shouted. Marco moved toward the main ramp. Nora stopped. "No." Everyone looked at her. "He won't use west." Marco snapped. "The alarm is west." Because he triggered it. Nora ran to the valet route board. "Tonight is gala loadout. West ramp is blocked every 9 minutes by catering trucks. Elias has driven here for years. He knows that." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Where?" "Laundry service tunnel." Marco frowned. "That tunnel is pedestrian only." "It opens behind the old parking office. There's a roll-up gate at the alley. Hotel staff use it when the freight ramp jams." Dominic was already moving. They took the service stairs 2 at a time. Nora reached the lower corridor first and heard metal rattling ahead. Elias was at the roll-up gate with the black ledger under one arm and a pistol in his right hand. He saw her. For the first time since Nora had known him, the calm left his face. "You," he said. Nora stopped 10 yards away. Elias raised the pistol. Dominic appeared behind her. The weapon shifted toward him. "Drop it, Elias." Elias laughed once, broken and bitter. 12 years, Dom. 12 years I watched you give everything to people born with your name, while men like me drove the car and took the bullets. You sold routes to Valenti. I sold information. They were supposed to scare you into changing port terms. Then the money got better. The SUV? Elias's jaw clenched. That was the final contract. Dominic's voice turned deadly quiet. And Nora? Elias looked at her. A valet nobody would believe. Perfect scapegoat. Nora felt anger burn away the last of her fear. You cloned my badge. I cloned 6 badges. You leaked my name to the hotel source. Elias smiled. I needed the story to stick. Dominic took 1 step forward. Elias pointed the gun directly at Nora. Don't. Dominic stopped. The satisfaction on Elias's face lasted less than a second. Nora looked past him at the gate control. Old Belmore hardware, manual override, safety beam at ankle height. Elias had already hit the close switch behind him, and the roll-up gate was descending toward the concrete. A rolling linen cart sat beside Nora. She kicked it hard. The cart shot across the corridor and broke the ankle-high safety beam. The descending gate jolted, stopped, and reversed upward with a violent metallic crash. Elias flinched and turned his head. Dominic moved. He crossed the distance before Elias could correct his aim, slammed the gun hand into the concrete wall, and drove his shoulder into Elias's chest. The pistol clattered away. Marco and 2 guards arrived seconds later and forced Elias to the floor. The black ledger slid across the tile and stopped at Nora's shoe. She picked it up. Inside were payment dates, route changes, vehicle numbers, shell company codes, and one line that made her stomach turn. Bell Nora H. Frame after event. Dominic saw it over her shoulder. His face became completely still. Elias, pinned on the floor, began talking fast. Dom, listen to me. Valenti has men inside the port. I can give you names. Warehouses, accounts. I can fix this. Dominic crouched beside him. You tried to put me inside a burning car. Elias swallowed. Dominic glanced at Nora. Men have tried to kill me before. You know what makes this different? Elias said nothing. You chose an innocent woman because you thought nobody important would care what happened to her. His eyes went black. You were wrong. Marco hauled Elias upright. Dominic did not shout. He did not strike him again. Take him. Elias's face collapsed. Dom, do not call me that. The guards dragged him away. Silence returned to the service tunnel. Nora looked down at the ledger in her hands. Dominic looked at her. You dropped a laundry cart on an armed traitor. I dropped it through a safety beam. That distinction is doing a lot of work. Her hands began shaking now that the danger was over. Dominic saw it. He stepped closer, but did not touch her until she nodded once. Then his hands settled gently around her upper arms. You're safe. Nora laughed weakly. You keep saying things like that in places where people are trying to kill us. I'll work on the timing. She looked up at him. For a man whose entire life was built on control, Dominic Moretti looked almost helpless for 1 second. When that gun moved toward you, I forgot the bomb had ever been meant for me, he said. His jaw tightened as though admitting it cost him something. You scared me. The honesty hit harder than any possessive declaration could have. Nora's voice softened. You scared me first. I know. And you're still impossible. I know that too. His thumb brushed once over the sleeve of her uniform. Then he let her go before the gesture could become something else. The next morning, the Belmore held a press conference. Nora had not asked for one. She had asked for her name back. Dominic made sure the hotel understood the difference. Charles Whitmore stood behind a podium in the main lobby in front of cameras, employees, and several guests who had witnessed the explosion. He looked as though each word cost him money. Our investigation has confirmed that Ms. Nora Hale was not involved in the attack on Mr. Moretti's vehicle. Her credentials were fraudulently cloned as part of a deliberate effort to frame her. Ms. Hale's actions prevented multiple casualties and materially assisted the investigation. Nora stood off to the side with her arms folded. Whitmore continued. The Grand Belmore would like to offer Ms. Hale immediate reinstatement. He turned toward her with a strained smile. Nora walked to the microphone. You fired me loudly. A few employees tried not to laugh. Whitmore's smile tightened. Nora looked at the cameras. So thank you for clearing me loudly. Then she stepped away. Dominic was waiting near the marble staircase. You're not taking the job back, he said. Nora raised an eyebrow. You sound very sure. Because Whitmore just offered you the exact position he fired you from. And that's an insult disguised as mercy. Nora looked back at the valet desk, where she had spent 4 years being good enough to trust with cars people loved more than some relatives. What are you offering? Dominic reached into his jacket and handed her a folder. She opened it. Director of Fleet and Route Security. Moretti Group. Nora stared at him. You made this up. No. This position did not exist yesterday. It does now. Because I saved you? Dominic's expression was serious. Because you saw the threat before every man I pay to see threats. Nora looked down at the salary and nearly choked. This is ridiculous. It is competitive. It is 3 times what I make. Then the Belmore was underpaying you. She closed the folder. And if I say no, then you say no. No pressure. No command. No threat. That mattered. Nora studied him. I would report to Marco? On security operations. And to you? When necessary. That sounds dangerous. Dominic's eyes warmed. You have met me. She smiled. I want authority to stop any vehicle. Yours included. Marco, standing nearby, groaned. Boss, please think carefully. Dominic never looked away from Nora. Granted. And no one gets to override me because they have a bigger title. Granted. Even you. A pause. Marco muttered, This is where negotiations usually collapse. Dominic held out his hand. Especially me. Nora took it. 3 months later, the Moretti fleet had new access protocols, rotating vehicle assignments, independent badge verification, and one rule every driver hated until Nora reminded them why it existed. No departure happened until she cleared the vehicle. Nobody laughed at the rule, not after the explosion. Elias Rourke's ledger exposed years of sold routes and hidden payments. Several Valenti fronts collapsed under federal investigations after anonymous financial records reached the right desks. Elias himself disappeared into a prison case built from conspiracy, explosives, and attempted murder charges strong enough that even the men he had sold information to could not reach him. The Belmore quietly replaced 3 executives and publicly credited Nora in its revised security report. Dominic did not mention any of that the night he found her alone in the Moretti garage at 11:30, standing beside a restored 1968 Mustang. Nora was looking under the hood. You work late, he said. So do you. He came to stand beside her. My father bought this before I was born. Nora smiled. Your mechanic hates you. Dominic frowned. Why? Because you never drive it. It is valuable. Cars are supposed to move. So are people. She glanced at him. That almost sounded philosophical. Don't tell anyone. Nora laughed. Dominic leaned against the fender. Dinner tomorrow. That sounded like an order. He corrected himself immediately. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Better. And? Nora pretended to inspect a hose. I need 10 seconds. Dominic stared at her. Then she smiled. Yes. He laughed, a low, surprised sound she had only heard twice before. On their first real date, Dominic arrived in a black sedan, personally inspected by Nora. He stepped out, held up the keys, and placed them in her palm. Clear? Nora walked once around the car with exaggerated seriousness, checked the rear stance, glanced beneath the bumper, then returned. Clear. Dominic did not take the keys back. Keep them. Why? Because the last time I demanded keys from you, you saved my life. His voice softened. And because trusting you has worked out better than trusting myself. Nora's chest tightened. She closed her fingers around the key fob. 3 months earlier, she had been a valet nobody important looked at twice. She had been blamed because blaming her was easy. Elias had chosen her name because he thought power would never turn around and defend someone standing behind a parking podium. He had been wrong. But the greatest change was not that Dominic Moretti had noticed her. It was that once he did, he respected what he saw. Nora looked at the man beside her, the feared Mafia boss who now waited for her answer instead of issuing commands. You know, she said, I still reserve the right to refuse you your keys. Dominic opened the restaurant door for her. I would be disappointed if you didn't. If Nora's courage had saved your life, would you trust her with every car you owned? Or would giving one person that much authority be too dangerous? Tell us what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed seeing an overlooked valet expose a betrayal that Dominic's entire security empire missed, like the video, share the story, and subscribe for more Mafia Boss dramas where the person everyone ignores may be the only one who sees the danger coming.